This is Part 2 Episode 9. When he finished, he signaled with his eyes to Xiao Huan and Wild Dog Taoist. The two of them were naturally anxious to leave too, nodded earnestly, but when they were about to stride off, Mr. Ghost's cold voice was suddenly heard again. I release them, it does not mean I will spare you all. The three of them were surprised. Zhu Yixian asked in shock, what did you say? Mr. Ghost sneered, said, the three of you came here again to spy out me, and even know my secret of the way of ghost, greatly violated my taboo. Now I will let the three of you attack me together, so that you all can die without regrets. Xiao Huan and the rest turned pale. Zhu Yixian had just fought with him and knew this person's skills were deep and unfathomable, and he could not fight against him. He could only meekly said, your distinguished self is an exceptional master. Know that we bear you no malice. Only worrying my dead son's soul will be disturbed so then. Before he could finish, Mr. Ghost suddenly shouted, don't need to say any more, look out for the fire. That ghost fire in the mid-air again lighted up, the ghost energy once again filled up the house. Zhu Yixian's expression changed greatly. Before he could speak, that ghost fire again formed the five-star formation, a sound of shriek. It was that all-conquering ghost hull projected out again, rushing over. Wild Dog Taoist cried out in his heart, rushed before Xiao Huan, took out his beast fang weapon, and had it before him. Zhu Yixian shouted, can't block it, quickly avoid it. But while speaking, that ghost hull seemed to be much faster than before. In a blink it was already before Wild Dog Taoist. In that instant Wild Dog Taoist felt a powerful wind like a knife in his face, especially both of his ears felt stabbing pain, his entire being like among thousands of sharp swords, helplessly being slaughtered. Xiao Huan behind him was heard screaming, her voice full of fear, about to go and help, but was stopped by that powerful wind from beside Wild Dog's body. The ghost hellbreak abruptly stopped. Xiao Huan had nowhere to retreat, and could not avoid, when it seemed like Xiao Huan was about to be hit by this powerful ghostly attack. At this critical juncture, suddenly a light suo was heard from outside the house. An object flashed. A black-green light, like lightning, flew before Xiao Huan and Wild Dog. A black stick which looked ordinary and blunt, slashing gently from top down. Suddenly the all-powerful ghost hellbreak vanished. The howling in the house slowly quietened down. Xiao Huan, who had just came back from Gates of Hell, whipped her head around, an uncontrollable joy on her face. She cried, it's you. And almost at the same time, the netherworld ghost fire slowly fused into one. Mr. Ghost also coldly said, you? Someone indifferently spoke from outside the door, yes, it is me. Following that voice, someone unhurriedly walked in, a long robe with hands clasped behind, a three-eyed grey monkey on his shoulder. It was Ghost Li. Ghost Li glanced towards the three of them. Xiao Huan was beaming and looking at him with joy. Wild Dog Taoist on the other hand looked strange, glanced at him a few times and slowly retreated to a side. Ghost Li felt bewildered, but did not think much of it. Unhurriedly walked to the middle of the room. The soul-absorbing stick glimmered with strange light, slowly flew back to his hand. Zhu Yixian glanced at Ghost Li, and glanced at Xiao Huan, suddenly grunted, said, brat, you must have long arrived at this area and actually did not render help. You know that this old man is frail and old, and still watch me face this ghost thing. Really harbor sinister motives, you this fellow. Xiao Huan frowned, glared at Zhu Yixian, called out, with some rebuke, grandfather. Ghost Li did not seem to care, looked at him, said, if not so, I won't know you actually have some connections with that old ancestor at Qingyun Hill. Zhu Yixian's face changed, grunted. Ghost Li ignored him and slowly turned, faced that silent coffin. Mr. Ghost's voice slowly rang out, aren't you at Majestic Fox Mountain looking after Bai Yao? Why did you come here? Ghost Li stared at the coffin, said, I was about to ask you, you are not at the Wildlands Holy Temple, what are you doing here? Mr. Ghost was silent for a moment, said, in any case, you and I are after all from Ghost King sect. These three violated my taboo, infringed my privacy. I want to remove them. Why are you obstructing? Zhu Yixian listened from the back. Somehow his voice became louder now, loudly said, Pei, you talked about killing so easily. Don't tell me you think it is as easy as slaughtering pigs. Xiao Huan and Wild Dog Taoist both glanced sideways at him. Zhu Yixian frowned, seemed to feel something amiss with himself too, mumbled a few words and quietened down. Ghost Li coldly spoke to the coffin, you cannot kill them. Mr. Ghost coldly sneered, said, why not? Ghost Li said, because I am here. Mr. Ghost paused, after a long while coldly said, "Don't tell me you are planning to come forward for them in force." Ghost Li's face was expressionless, said, "Yes, with me here, you cannot kill them." A trace of joy flitted past Zhu Yixian's face. Xiao Huan watched Ghost Li's back figure intently, biting down on her lips, her eyes particularly bright. Only Wild Dog Taoist did not look at Ghost Li, instead watched Xiao Huan for a moment from the side and then quietly stepped back. That spot of netherworld ghost fire in mid-air suddenly started to light up, the faint green light again diffused out. Zhu Yixian and the rest turned pale, but Ghost Li was still standing there, unmoving, coldly staring at that ball of fire. The soul-absorbing stick in his hand also started to glow. Right now, in the entire house, the one that was most carefree was Xiao Hui. It seemed not concerned at all about the impending fight in front of it, peering here and there, looking at the ghost fire for a moment, and then turned and glanced at Xiao Huan, made monkey faces at her, while its hand from time to time scratching its body. Facing Ghost Li, although Mr. Ghost still had not emerged from that coffin, but clearly he had become much serious, that faint point of ghost fire in mid-air gradually became larger, casting the surrounding people's faces green. Ghost Li stared at that ball of green, his face expressionless, suddenly stepped forward. Almost at the same time Ghost Li moved, that ball of ghost fire, as if stimulated, suddenly flared, but this time it did not divide itself into the 5 stars formation, instead it suddenly rose, creating a gust of strong wind with it. The dust in the mortuary fell in showers. Zhu Yixian and the rest were caught unaware, one by one started to rub their eyes. And at this increasingly tense situation, the unearthly atmosphere in the air looked like it was about to activate some mysterious strange spell. Ghost Li, facing this mysterious Mr. Ghost, dared not let his guard down and was on high alert. Suddenly he raised his eyebrows, his body lifted abruptly into the air. Almost at the same time, a rumble emitted from below the house. The entire house quaked violently, like the mountain was moving. A huge and pale skeleton giant arm broke through the flagstones, heavily smashed down on where Ghost Li was standing previously. The black brick stones on the ground smashed into pieces, broken pieces flying. The entire room at the moment was engulfed in Ghost's howling cries. Ghost Li in mid-air, that skeleton arm seemed to be manipulated by some mysterious power, sprang up and charged towards Ghost Li. Ghost Li frowned tightly, but there was no panic in his eyes reflecting the giant arm's fast approaching figure. When it looked like it was about to hit his body swayed and floated to the right. At that moment a hair's breadth avoided it. That giant arm crashed down, again another cloud of debris. The dense unearthly atmosphere in the house, the fierce wind piercingly cold. Zhu Yixian and the rest pressed tightly against the walls, wanted to leave, but dared not move, for fear they might get hurt in this chaos. But luckily, it seemed that Mr. Ghost's attention was all on Ghost Li. The 3 of them hid at the corner of the altar table. The white skeleton did not hunt for them. Only that the 3 of them in the chaos saw that the mortuary, which was originally not that spacious, with the addition of that huge arm out of a sudden, pursuing Ghost Li, the place looked slightly crowded. But almost as if this was not enough, while Zhu Yixian was grumbling in his heart, the earth below rumbled with another deep groan. The faint sound sounded agitated and violent, like a fierce spirit imprisoned for a long time, finally had a chance to emerge and vent its frustration. The mortuary quaked violently, the earth erupted and stones cracked. Another identical giant arm emerged from the ground, fiercely hit towards Ghost Li. Ghost Li moved swiftly and swerved to avoid the 2 arms, both eyes concentrating tightly, but so far, he had not fought back. In the house, right now it seemed extremely crowded. The ghastly white arms moved in a flurry. The unfathomable yet horrifying scene played out in this mortuary. Despite the intense fight between Mr. Ghost and Ghost Li, they seemed to have a tacit understanding. Their display of powers were limited to this mansion. Mr. Ghost's way of ghost skills did not extend out of the house, while Ghost Li's movements were kept to the interior of the house. Above in the air, that ghost fire coldly burned. Under the green faint light, the white bones danced in the air. Ghost Li's figure seemed to gradually take on some strange ghastly energy, but no matter what, so far, Mr. Ghost still was unable to do anything to Ghost Li. Within the coffin, Mr. Ghost coldly snorted. Suddenly, that ghost fire brightened. The 2 huge and pursuing giant arms abruptly stopped. Then with a sound of lament, "Kaka, kaka," piercing sounds rang out. Numerous cracks appeared on that 2 giant skeleton arms. The next moment turned into innumerable small pieces, the edges extremely sharp, like a shower of bones and yet like swarms of man-eating bees, blotted out the sky and covered up the earth. charged towards Ghostly. Zhu Yixian and the rest turned pale. Xiao Huan cried out. In the small mansion, it was already hard enough avoiding the two giant arms. Right now they had turned into showers of bone pieces, densely packed together. How could one avoid it? Ghostly's face was as cold as frost, staring at this sheet of bone pieces. The pieces looked to be reaching him. He suddenly dropped swiftly from the air, heading straight to the ground, his movement extremely fast, like lightning. The bone pieces braked in the air, like it was alive, made a screeching sound, stopped its momentum, made a bend and descended from the air. Ghostly looked like he was about to reach the ground, but before he could land properly, Ghostly slapped his hand on the ground. His entire body stuck close to the ground and flew out, and his direction was towards that coffin where Mr. Ghost was. That ghost fire in the air startled, struck down lightning fast, and the numerous bone pieces behind, like a wind whistling, pursued Tylee, the violent storm howling. The entire house quaked violently. Ghostly's clothes flapped wildly in the wind, but at this moment, where there was obstacle in front and pursuing soldiers behind, he suddenly threw out the soul-absorbing black stick from his hand. That force was great, with strange powers activating it. The sinister orb at the tip of the black stick swirled with dark red, lines and dots of blood lighted up. It was a scene where evil power was at its peak. Just that, the direction where the soul-absorbing stick flew, was where Zhu Yixian and the rest were at. Zhu Yixian, Xiao Huan and Wild Dog Taoist. Before they could react, a stream of black light suddenly rushed before them, an extremely cold blanket of air already enveloping them before it arrived. An indistinct mysterious evil power like a ferocious demon descended from the air and influencing the blood inside their bodies, a feeling of penetrating into their bodies and exiting. The next moment, the soul-absorbing stick was before them, a sound of a duo, stabbed into the wall beside Zhu Yixian's head, almost totally sinking in. Zhu Yixian blanched, even forgotten to curse Ghostly, immediately felt a cold wave traveling from his head to his feet. That black stick beside his ears, like an invisible arm, wanted to drag him in. He was terrified, forced his body to move and only then managed to breathe deeply. And this moment, that shower of bone pieces and that ball of faint ghost fire, like a wave of tsunami, suddenly abruptly stopped, froze in the air. A moment later, a faint groan was heard from the wall. A block of human-shaped earth suddenly flew out from the wall, headed towards Ghostly, and the numerous bone pieces, like losing their spiritual power, fell onto the ground. Only that ball of ghost fire, surged in brightness, once again floated above that piece of earth. Ghostly whistled lightly, his right hand waved, the soul-absorbing stick flew back, stabbed into the block of earth from the back. Immediately the earth broke. A human figure in black flashed out, drifting like a ghost, floated above to where that coffin was. It was Mr. Ghost. The soul-absorbing stick slowly landed, went back to Ghostly. Ghostly stared at Mr. Ghost, did not make any move. Mr. Ghost slowly turned and looked at Ghostly, suddenly said, "How did you find out my place of concealment?" Ghostly was silent, did not answer, but only looked at him coldly. Mr. Ghost's black veil moved slightly, nodded his head and said, "All right, we may not be friends in the future, of course you will refuse to say, just that we are not yet finished today. I'd like to see you who is rumored to have the 3 great factions true ways in your body. How exactly is your cultivation?" Ghostly's pupils slightly contracted. Although he took Mr. Ghost by surprise by using soul-absorbing stick to attack where he was concealing, considered having the upper hand, but his expression did not look relaxed at all. Intentionally or unintentionally, the soul-absorbing stick stabbed into the earth block, but Mr. Ghost was like an apparition, an empty space. He could not tell the effect of the soul-absorbing evil power on him. This person was mysterious and unfathomable. It was really something Ghostly had not encountered before. Watching the confrontation between the two people, it seemed like there would be another fierce fight again. Zhu Yixian calmed his frightened self, quickly pulled Xiao Huan and Wild Dog Taoist, both of them startled, knew that it would be extremely dangerous with such strange powers battling each other, hurriedly found a hole in the already dilapidated wall and scurried out. Before leaving, Xiao Huan seemed to remember something, stretched out her hand and took Zhu Xingyun's tablet with her. 2. The 3 of them left in succession. Ghostly and Mr. Ghost were clearly aware, but Ghostly did not react, and as a great foe was before Mr. Ghost, he seemed couldn't be bothered about them. Just that after they left, howling sounds were heard again from the house. Sands and stones flew past. Zhu Yixian and the rest outside the broken walls were pushed several kai back by the violent winds. Zhu Yixian pulled Xiao Huan back a distance, a full 3 zhongs away before turning back to gaze at the house. but at such a far distance, he could not feel the intense fight going on between the two martial artist experts. Seemed like they were still controlling their powers within the house. Looking from a distance, strange lights flashed from the house, other than the initial faint green, right now gold, red, white, dark green and other strange lights also began. If not for the dense ghastly and murderous atmosphere, the scene was rather beautiful. Xiao Huan stared at that house, whispered to Zhu Yixian, who was getting ready to run, said, "Grandfather, are we just going to leave like this? I don't think it's very nice." Zhu Yixian and Wild Dog Taoist, who was beside him, were shocked, turned around and looked at Xiao Huan. Zhu Yixian frowned and said, "Silly girl, what are you thinking of? Those two are monsters who kill people like flies. We are lucky to escape with our lives. Why do you still want to stay here for?" Xiao Huan hesitated a moment, said, but after all, to save us, he then. Wild Dog Taoist looked at her, did not speak. Zhu Yixian impatiently said, "I say, why are you so muddle-headed? Ghostly is highly skilled, what is there to worry, besides they are dog-eat-dog, oh, no, one is called Ghostly, the other Mr. Ghost, should be called Ghost Fighting Ghost. They Ghost Fighting Ghost, what concern it is to us, quickly go, quickly go." Speaking, he pulled Xiao Huan's hand and walked off. Xiao Huan hesitated for a moment, but eventually was pulled away by Zhu Yixian. Wild Dog Taoist turned to glance at that mortuary flashing with strange lights. Indistinctly whistling of fierce winds could be heard. His eyes complicated, did not speak, paused for a moment, then turned and chased Zhu Yixian and Xiao Huan. In the mortuary, the time to brew a cup of tea had passed. The ramshackle mansion right now was even more ruined, broken stones of the dilapidated walls. Even the ruined floor was like being plowed by cows after an earthquake, the earth uneven and lumpy. Stone pieces suddenly sticking out, not even a proper place to stand. And Ghostly and Mr. Ghost were both floating in the air right now, temporarily ceased fighting, staring at each other, both seemed to be slightly panting. Only Xiao Hui on Ghostly's shoulder looked impatient, yawned a few times lazily, stretched itself. Mr. Ghost suddenly spoke, "Can't imagine your skills have actually improved so much. Just only 10 years of time, and you are able to merge Taoism, Buddhism, evil, the three factions, true ways into one. That is really not easy." Ghostly looked at this mysterious figure in black, coldly said, "I also did not expect, you are not from the evil sect and instead from the southern border shaman art, the way of ghosts." Dark red light suddenly appeared in his eyes. He stared at Mr. Ghost, his voice turned ice cold, said, "Since you are well versed in the way of ghost, then the soul return unusual art for Bai Yao, you." Before he could finish, Mr. Ghost already interrupted, "You are wrong. Although I know a little of the way of ghost skills, but soul return unusual art is still the southern border black shaman tribe's secret art. I do not know it. Else if not based on my friendship with Ghost King, I would have already saved Miss Bai Yao." Ghostly looked at him coldly, the red glow glimmering uncertainty in his eyes. He seemed to be deliberating over Mr. Ghost's words. Instead Mr. Ghost, who was silent for a moment, suddenly spoke, "Since tonight you insisted to protect those three, given that we are all from Ghost King sect, I will let them go this time. There is no meaning to us fighting here, why not we just stop now?" Ghostly sneered in his heart. He was no longer that naive youth from the past. The perilous fight just now, if his cultivation was low or if he had been careless, he would have died numerous times, and at that time, definitely no one would say things like "we are all from Ghost King sect." Mr. Ghost was really an unfathomable character, although Ghostly was not afraid of him, but that battle earlier on, he knew that this person's skills were abnormal and was really someone not easy to deal with. He did not wish to be over-hasty and so nodded and indifferently said, "That is good too." Mr. Ghost slowly descended and landed. The mortuary was in a ruin, most of the coffins were all torn apart. Only that coffin at that in place was still intact. Mr. Ghost landed on it, was silent for a moment, said, "What is your intention for coming to Qingyun Hill this time?" Ghostly coldly said, "Then what are you here for?" Mr. Ghost faintly said, "The world is in a chaos, it is the troubled times, the evil beasts are on a rampage, the battle between good faction and the evil beasts is inevitable, how can I miss it?" Ghostly looked at him and said, "As what you said, the good faction and the evil beasts, who will win?" A glint suddenly flashed in Mr. Ghost's eyes, he seemed to recall something, said, "The evil beasts are formidable, contrary to everyone's expectation, especially for that beast deity. Until now no one has seen his moves, moreover his cultivation level, but to be able to dominate the innumerable powerful demonic beasts, presumably this person must be an unparalleled formidable figure. This big battle. I'm afraid the demonic beasts have a 70% odds. Ghost Lee's pupils slightly contracted, he was silent for a long time, said, then 30% from the good faction, don't tell me it's on Juzian formation. Mr. Ghost smiled and said, that is right. Qingyun Hill Juzian sword formation really makes a difference. After 1,000 years, it is still the world's top supreme Taoism formation. If the good faction wishes to win, then they will have to put their hopes on this sword formation. If not, there will not be that many good faction righteous people. Instead of going other places, all of them came to Qingyun Hill. Ghost Lee, silent with his head lifted, his expression complex, seemed to have recalled some things, pain indistinct on his face. Mr. Ghost saw his expression, suddenly said, although you started out from Qingyun, but some of Qingyun's secrets, most likely you are still unaware. Ghost Lee's countenance changed, turned to look at Mr. Ghost, as if he wanted to stare through this person. After a while, he drawled, please advise. Mr. Ghost looked at Ghost Lee, his tone calm, but his eyes seemed to convey a deeper meaning. Qingyun Hill Juzian sword formations might exceeds the mortal and enters the sage. It is sufficient to slay the evil and eliminate the demons. For 1,000 years it has always been the treasured weapon of guarding Qingyun Hill. Legend says that the sword formation was born out of that volume of nameless ancient scroll that Qingyun Hill Qingyunzi founder obtained, until 1,000 years ago the emergence of the peerless genius Qingyi, who went into seclusion at illusory moon cave for 13 years, emerged white-haired, personally invented this. He gathered the spiritual energies from Qingyun's 7 mountain summits as the formation, transformed the murderous energies of the world's living things as the sword, and becomes invincible in the world. His voice paused and then, sounding slightly erratic, but his pair of eyes firmly glued on Ghost Lee, slowly said, and this astounding unparalleled formation is inseparable from one celestial weapon. Ghost Lee exclaimed, the ancient sword, Juzian. Mr. Ghost nodded and said, it is indeed. Where exactly did Juzian came from? It has always been a mystery. I'm afraid even those people at Qingyun Hill won't be able to explain. But one thing is for sure. The first appearance of Juzian ancient sword was when Qingyi founder emerged from his seclusion in illusory moon cave for 13 years, holding that sword in his hands. And all along, that celestial weapon is never kept closely with Qingyun's sect head, but instead placed in the illusory moon cave at the back of Qingyun Hill. Mr. Ghost stopped. In the mortuary, a silence temporarily descended. Ghost Lee looked at him intently, slowly said, how did you know so much? Mr. Ghost waved his hand and said, you don't have to bother about me, but what I have said to you is indeed the facts. Therefore the secret of Qingyun Juzian sword formation, most likely, is within the illusory moon cave that only Qingyun's sect head can enter. He smiled and said, do you understand? Ghost Lee did not speak, only stared silently at that person. After a long while, coldly said, who exactly are you? Mr. Ghost clasped his hands behind his back, standing, slowly said, in short, remember that I am not your enemy, that is all. Ghost Lee looked at that person for a moment, suddenly turned and slowly floated out. When his figure was about to disappear, his voice seemed to be heard, but it also sounded like the wind, indistinct. Mr. Ghost stood alone in the dark, motionless. That faint ghost fire slowly darkened and finally completely extinguished. The mansion lapsed into silence again. Just after a while, the dark place where a human figure was, a low, low sneer was heard. Dawn, when the sky was just brightening up, the sky around Qingyun Hill was covered thick with dark clouds. Raindrops fell soon after. The rain from small droplets to big. Very quickly the world turned grey and misty. Pitter-patter sounds of raindrops everywhere enveloped the lofty mountains in a water mist, appearing hazy and mysterious. The sound of raindrops hitting the green bamboo leaves, as though for the past 10,000 years it had never changed. At Qingyun Hill, it has always appeared lonely. The tips of the tile house eaves, moss grew on it due to the years. Water droplets from drips turned into a water curtain. Strings and strings like pearls fell down, landing on the floor paved with blue stones, splattering pearl-like fragments, water beads. Wind in the rain, bursts of rain swayed in waves, bringing faint moisture and mist of water, oscillating between the windowsill, as if sentimentally attached to something. Lu Shueqi stood alone before the window, watching the misty rain scenery outside the window, undulating. At this cold and chilly moment, it was as if only the sound of rain falling onto the bamboo leaves reverberated in between heaven and earth, mountains and rivers. A slight breeze blew past, her black hair gently ruffled, the rain mists brushed past her face, like a wave of coldness seeping into the skin. She pursued her lips slightly, her hand supporting against the windowsill. The sound of rain sounded far yet near, eventually all seemed to fall deep into her heart. Wondered if there were also ripples. Footsteps were heard outside the house. Someone gently knocked on the door. Lu Xueqi silently looked back, quietly came out of her musing, walked over to open the door. Her senior sister Wen Minute was standing there. Lu Xueqi smiled faintly, said, "Senior sister." Wen Minute looked at her slightly haggard face, frowned and went in. Lu Xueqi closed the door behind her. The two of them sat down in the simple house. Wen Minute first looked at the bed, saw that the bed was tidily made up, sighed and said, "You didn't sleep last night?" Lu Xueqi quietly said, "I can't sleep." Wen Minute looked at Lu Xueqi, felt a stab of pain in her heart. She had entered Small Bamboo Valley earlier than Lu Xueqi, and had always been on good relations with her, with Lu Xueqi's aloof and proud character. Other than their mentor, Shui Yu, only Wen Minute was the closest to her. Recently Lu Xueqi had troubles endlessly. Wen Minute saw it all and was anxious, although she was worrying by herself, but there was nothing she could do and could only watch helplessly as the relations between Lu Xueqi, teacher, and Qingyun various elders turned more and more tense. For a moment the house was in silence. Wen Minute too did not know what to say. After a moment, Lu Xueqi instead spoke, "Senior sister, this time, because of me, I am really sorry." Wen Minute was stunned, said, "What?" Lu Xueqi said, "I heard a few days ago Big Bamboo Valley Tian teacher uncle and Suayu teacher uncle personally brought Song Daran Song's senior brother to propose marriage, but teacher instead rejected and also got into a big argument with Tian teacher uncle." Wen Minute gave a wry laugh. There was some bitterness in her laughter, slowly shaking her head. "Ari, that is nothing. To say this is also not because of you. He and I are not fated and we all know, teacher has always abhorred Big Bamboo Valley." Lu Xueqi silently shook her head, said, "No it's not. That day was the day that I upset teacher. When I made her angry, I also dragged you down with it. If not with Suayu teacher uncle around, Tian teacher uncle was also willing to give such a big face and personally came to propose marriage, very likely your marriage proposal would be successful. But, senior sister, I am really sorry." Wen Minute smiled, heaved a long sigh, said, "Enough said. Don't blame yourself over it. Aren't I doing well now, and teacher is only mad for a period and not to say there wouldn't be a chance in the future." Pausing, she glanced at Lu Xueqi, said, "Enough of my stuff. As for you, what is your plan exactly? You can't go on this deadlock with teacher indefinitely." Lu Xueqi's face turned slightly pale, remained silent. Wen Minute pondered for a long time, said, "Junior sister, I roughly know what is going on in your mind, but you can't go on like this. Zhong, that person, he after all has already joined the evil sect, cast aside by the world's good faction, and to take a step back and say, this time you went to the southwest, the battlefield where the fierce battle between the evil sect and demonic beasts, the scene's over there you." Wen Minute suddenly stopped and did not continue, because at that moment Lu Xueqi's face seemed to instantly turn pale, even her bright, clear eyes also seemed to be etched with deep pain. The room was silent for a long time, the pitter sounds of the rain outside the window, wordlessly lonely. Finally, Wen Minute whispered, "Most probably he is really not in the mortal world anymore. You being this persistent, you yourself will only suffer." Lu Xueqi was pale, did not speak and slowly stood up, went to the windowsill and gazed out. That blanket of mist in the mountain, misty lingering, like in a dream, even rain spray and water droplets at this moment, seemed to feel surreal in the coldness. "I know. This cold and beautiful woman, in this misty rain," gently said, "he might be really gone. Sometimes I have also thought about it. Actually to him, this may be also a release. I also know, teacher's rebuke is not wrong. It is me who is in the wrong. I should not be carried away by my wishful thinking. I should not. Her voice suddenly choked. Wen Minute stood up, was about to go comfort her when she suddenly turned. A figure of white floated, like a lonely cloud. Her eyes seemed to have tears, sparkling and clear, with a trace of melancholy that was never there before, said, "Senior sister, I know it all, but I just cannot let it go. Even though I sever this affection 1,000 times, I still cannot sever it, unable to escape from it." After returning from the southwest, I have told myself countless times, he is dead and everything is over. But every night, after I fell asleep, I dreamt about that horrible scene at the venomous Serpent Valley, dreamt that he by the demonic beasts. Lu Xueqi suddenly stopped, looked agitated, till 1 minute felt worried, but Lu Xueqi soon calmed down, only her eyes still looked grieved. Then, I woke up, in cold sweat, like in an icehouse. She looked at 1 minute silently and then her expression gradually turned fragile, as if her body was also beginning to tremble, said, "Senior sister, what happened to me, what exactly happened to me?" She suddenly fell into 1 minute's arms. 1 minute hugged her shoulders, felt her weak body shivering. From her ears came the sound of her quiet voice. "Senior sister, I can't take it anymore, I really cannot take it anymore." 1 minute was silent, tightly held Lu Xueqi, who had never been so fragile. This once aloof and proud girl, right now seemed to be the most broken-hearted and disconsolate person in the world. This video will end here.